What is up guys, this is Yusuf Shah from TECHDROIDS and welcome back to a brand new video on the channel. And OnePlus launched their OnePlus 5 yesterday, the flagship killer for 2017. So in this video we're going to compare it to another phone of its kind and another company that's trying to build a flagship killer under a very tight budget. And if you haven't guessed it, we're talking the Xiaomi Mi 6. So it's a really good phone from Xiaomi that is, giving what the OnePlus 5 is giving for, way lesser price, and maybe in some cases it's better. So in this video we're going to compare the OnePlus 5 against the Xiaomi Mi 6. So with that being said, let's get started. So both these phones are, pretty similar, or at least they have the same goal: kill the flagships at a budget price. And both of them are kind of successful in their own ways. Both of them have their pros and cons, but I feel, in my personal opinions, the Xiaomi Mi 6 is better. Now I've made it clear at the start. Now let's find out why. So first, the specs. The OnePlus 5 is powered by the Snapdragon 835, coupled with 6 or 8 GB of RAM, the Adreno 540 GPU, 64 or 128 GB of storage, no expandability, though the storage is fast, and a 3300 mAh battery. Moving on to the Xiaomi Mi 6, it is also powered by the Snapdragon 835, 6 GB of RAM universally with 64 or 128 GB of storage, and a 3350 mAh battery, and the Adreno 540 GPU. So with the specs, there's more or less the same. The storage is fast on the OnePlus 5 and also the GPU, as the GPU on the OnePlus 5 is clocked at 710 MHz, whereas on the Xiaomi Mi 6 you get it at 653 MHz. So in terms of raw power, you are getting better specs both ways. Now let's talk displays. The OnePlus 5 has a 5.5-inch optic AMOLED display with a PPI of 401. It is 1080p, so it's not the sharpest thing in the world. Whereas the Xiaomi Mi 6 has a 5.15-inch JDI IPS display that is also 1080p, but it has a PPI of 428. So it's sharper, more denser, and maybe more crisp looking. But in terms of the feel and the look of the display, I feel I should give it to the OnePlus 5 as it has that optic AMOLED display. But IPS and AMOLED, they both have their pros and cons. So I feel it depends on what you like. I feel the optic AMOLED does it, where it counts, and also the GDI IPS display. But that's going to be more, battery efficient as it's AMOLED, more deeper blacks. But I feel the better looking display goes to the OnePlus 5. But the Xiaomi Mi 6 does not have a terrible display at all. Next up, let's talk cameras. So the OnePlus 5 has a 16 megapixel and a 20 megapixel setup. That's again dual cameras. The 16 megapixel is the primary one with f1.7 aperture, and the 20 megapixel one comes with f2.6 aperture. So it will let in less light, and it's not the best in low light. And both of these phones, the Xiaomi Mi 6 has a 12 megapixel setup, so 12 megapixel primary sensor with f1.7 aperture, with again another 12 megapixel sensor that's a telephoto lens that's 52 millimeters in focal length, and also has the f2.6 aperture. So both of them are trying to implement that same iPhone 7 Plus kind of vibe with telephoto and more optical zoom. But one con on the OnePlus side is that you don't have optical image stabilization, whereas on Mi 6 side you do have optical image stabilization. And according to the reviews and all the comparisons that I've seen yet, the Mi 6 has a better camera, at least with the samples, low light, and all that seems better, whereas the OnePlus 5 struggles in video and excels in photo. The video on the OnePlus 5 is not stabilized in the 1080p, where you have stabilization that is electronic, it's jittery, jello-y, whereas the 4K is very shaky. But the Mi 6 has the IMX386 sensor, which is flagship in its quality, and it's a pretty good sensor. It's a pretty good pair of cameras. Both the ways you are getting good cameras, whereas if you are more into the video side of things, you're getting better here. Both of them do 4K video, but more stabilization, better quality, and better reliability comes with the Mi 6, whereas the OnePlus 5 is a good photo taking device. The OnePlus 5 has a 3300 mAh battery, whereas the Xiaomi Mi 6 has a 3350 mAh battery. Now on paper you'd say that this will have better battery life, and yes, it does. But something to note is that both the phones run on Android 7.1 Nougat, but the OnePlus 5 has Oxygen OS on top, so not heavily skinned, near stock experience, whereas the Xiaomi Mi 6 has the MIUI 8, which is heavily skinned and takes up a lot of battery life and memory. So better performance is there with the Mi 6, but battery life will be kind of similar to the OnePlus 5, if not a little notch better. And yeah, that sums up the battery life. Both of them have USB Type-C, whereas you have USB Type-C 3.1 over here and USB Type-C 2.0 on here. You have dash charge and quick charge. Both ways you are getting fast charging, but the OnePlus 5 is always going to be faster. Now let's talk the most important part of these two phones, and that's their pricing. The OnePlus 5 retails for $479 for the 64 and 6GB variant, whereas it retails for $539 for the 128 8GB variant. So 8GB of RAM and 128GB of storage, which is pretty reasonable. Xiaomi Mi 6 retails for $360 for the 664 variant and $420 for the 128 variant. So you're getting the same kind of specs for at least $100 less. Now you might say, you have 8GB of RAM here and 6GB of RAM there, and I feel it does not make a huge difference because Android on its own, cannot use up 4GB completely. 6 is again overkill, and 8 is just beyond this world. Now you will be, making use of it in the future, but for now, in terms of performance standpoint, 6GB or 8GB, I don't think so you will be able to see a big difference. So, performance to price ratio, performance per dollar, bang for your buck, I'll give it to the Xiaomi Mi 6 any day of the year. It is the better price to performance phone, and it actually has less downfalls. And yeah, it is the better looking phone. Now let's talk something that's subjective, and that's something you cannot compare, but it depends on you and what you want to see. The OnePlus 5 has a pretty good design, which is similar and resembles the resembles the iPhone 7 Plus. It has a blasted aluminum matte black kind of design, the same kind of vertical camera layout, antenna lines pushed to the top, speaker layout kind of the same, port layout, and all that good stuff. And it also has a 3.5mm jack, whereas the Xiaomi Mi 6 doesn't, but it has a USB Type-C port. So the dongle life ready phone is the Xiaomi Mi 6. And the Xiaomi Mi 6, I feel, will defeat the OnePlus 5 any day in terms of the looks, because it has that glass and metal look in a bunch of colors. You can also get a ceramic edition, you have silver, you have gold, you have all sorts of special editions, and Mi 6 will always be one step up from the OnePlus 5, and that is the fact. You've got to agree to it, and that's why I told you it's subjective, because I feel it's the Mi 6 is better. It depends on you how you take it. And that's been it. Thanks a lot for watching my personal opinions. Go with the Mi 6 if you're on a tighter budget. If you can't spend a lot of money for the few features that you get extra on the OnePlus 5, like the RAM, like fast storage or the fast charging, you can go. And if you want a stock like experience, you can go with the OnePlus 5. If you can deal with everything on the Mi 6, and if you like what it offers, go with the Mi 6. Thanks a lot for watching. Drop this video a big thumbs up. Get subscribed to TechDROIDS for more videos like this, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.